must remain positive.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Don't be cynical, Des.
Everything will be okay.
God, I feel so angry and frustrated with everything. With myself, society, people, the media, politics, my writing. I am so pessimistic. Pessimism is a part of me, a part of my structure. No matter how much I think I put it down. And this self-obsession is driving me to insanity. My narcissism is causing me to have a life romance with myself. But I don't fancy me. I don't even like me. Fancy having a romance with a person you don't like. Must be a form of hell. Maybe that's what insanity is.
This pessimism has at times led me into a sort of fantasy that I am Sidney Carton, a drunk and the main character in Charles Dickens' book, A Tale of Two Cities. He takes the place of a man who is going to be executed because he feels worthless and is in love with the woman this man is going to marry. She doesn't know that he loves her, possibly has an inkling, like all women do about men.
But she will find out about him after he's dead. While on the scaffold, he says,
Who will wait for me? Who will wait for a life lived? A worthless life? Nobody!
nobody,
Nobody!
nobody.
Nobody!
But somebody will wait for me now. It's a far, far better thing that I do now than I've ever done. And a far, far better rest I go to.
My morbid sentimentality.
On Thursday, I must have had one of my more manic days. I seem to have got so much done. In the morning, I went to a Bible study class, which lasted for an hour and a half.
Later on, I went to a community centre to play bingo with old-age pensioners. I started to feel uneasy there. I only played one session and had to get out. They asked.
Only playing one?
I pretended I had a doctor's appointment.
After that, I went to a meeting on mental health for about 2 hours regarding changes going on in Kempton social services. I felt I was an outsider, an observer of it all. I felt very isolated. When I came home, it was dark and very miserable. The night seemed full of foreboding.
Yesterday, I didn't do anything. I just slept and ate.
I've recently had this feeling of being invisible again. And sometimes the opposite feeling of being too visible and feeling paranoid and not wanting people to look at me when they actually do. And when I want them to notice me, they don't. Possibly due to my body language. Oh, I don't know. Illusion surrounds us all.
I'm writing on this disc, not knowing if I can retrieve what I write.
General everyday computers won't take this word processor disk. I'm very undecided what to do about this situation. Oh, this is putting it very mildly. I'm in high anxiety about the whole problem. I'm amazed how one can get so fearful about what to do. Is it because of my childhood rejection by my mother and father? A part of me is looking at it with amusement and disbelief. And another part saying,
Make a decision and pull yourself together.
the amusement part is probably a form of mild hysteria.
I just thought of Les Dawson, the comedian, saying she's having a hysterecolectomy instead of a hysterectomy. I might put down tomorrow what my options are. There are 3, it seems. Oh, fuck it, I'll do it now.
The first option is supposedly the best. I could buy a PC second-hand for £400 with a printer.
Second option, get this word processor repaired at a cost of £95. When it only costs £200 to start with.
Thirdly, I could buy a computer from a friend for £190. This last one I'm probably not going to do for reasons which I don't want to go into. She seems very uptight lately, that's all I'm going to say. However, I keep thinking about my friend's offer, but keep changing my mind. I don't want to spend £400 on one. In fact, I wouldn't want to spend £400 on anything. So much money.
After being away and then coming back to London and getting on a bus the other day, I sort of ran for the bus and I only just managed to get on. The driver never even looked at my pass and he started to drive off before I was really on the bus. I let that one go. But I said to the other passengers, turning round to them because I was at the top end of the bus, "You can get on a bus for free these days. They don't even look at your pass."
Nobody looked at me. Nobody agreed. Nobody acknowledged me. They all sat staring straight ahead like zombies on a day out. One man glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. I tried to attract his attention or get some response from him.
He quickly looked away. I looked around 2 or 3 times. They all sat transfixed, eyes staring into space like mad people in a catatonic state, just sitting there deadly quiet. So I said out loud, "Bloody hell, I'm back in London!"
Hoping somebody would respond.
Still nothing.
Made me nervous, so I started to giggle. It then dawned on me, they now think I'm the mad one, sitting here giggling to myself.
I would like to end on a positive and objective note. But I can't.
I would like to live a contemplative life in a community or even a monastery if I could believe and have faith in the doctrine. I would like to return to the melancholy and mystical world I used to be in, away from the samsara illusion of the secular world.
I was in Brighton last week in the Pavilion Gardens, talking about this book, Camden Parasites by Daniel Wright, alias Daniel Lux. This Lux word is very interesting. I looked it up in the dictionary to see why he chose it. It means a unit of illumination. I think that's how he saw himself. Light in the dark of the Camden Underground scene.
Anyway, back to Brighton. I was with Wayne, a friend I mentioned earlier in the book, talking about this book I'd read, Camden Parasites. Out of my eye, I saw what looked like a drunk or drug addict coming into the Pavilion Gardens. Out of all the people in the gardens, he come up to me and started talking to me. Within seconds of me talking about this drug addict in Camden, London, he actually made me quite nervous. He seemed in an angry mood. And as Wayne had his child with him, we decided to move on. I pointed out we were talking about a drug addict when he moved in on me. Wayne seemed to agree. There was some synchronicity there.
I couldn't put Camden Parasites down because I know most of the places in Camden he wrote about. I love his narrative about his discussion with his friends. Something I find difficult to put into writing. When I saw his picture in the Camden Journal, I thought I recognised him from somewhere. Probably Inverness Street, where he had his stall.
He lived on and off the streets of Camden, staying with friends and lovers, some of them well off. I find the streets difficult and dangerous and generally keep away if I can help it and keep to myself. 2 different realities of Camden.
Carrying on from my last entry about Daniel Wright, alias Daniel Lux, and the Camden Parasite book, what gets me high, and I really only came across this yesterday.
I was feeling very flat, like my brain was mush. I was dragging my body around as if it was weighed down with heavy chains, sort of like something out of Charles Dickens' story, A Christmas Carol. Marley's ghost, who haunts Ebenezer with such chains dragging behind him. It looked horrendous, but I digress.
So, I went into the Finchley Road complex, where they have this huge area consisting of cinemas, children's disco, restaurants, huge fish tanks for tropical fish, and a supermarket. And then, adding a surreal atmosphere, palm trees, and fountains that squirt water on the side of the elevator as you pass. Again, I digress.
I went into the coffee shop of books, etc., which is a huge bookshop where people read books just like in a library, with settees they sit on. People sit and read all day without even buying a book. I don't know how they make it pay.
I ordered a medium coffee, which is actually very large, bigger than a mug of coffee. On the side of the counter, they had chocolate that people put into their cappuccino. So I put some chocolate into my coffee and sat down to drink it. I then went back because I felt I needed more chocolate and sat down. And slowly, well, quite quickly really, I suddenly became aware of my surroundings and myself. I sort of woke from apathy. I felt energised and concentrated. I was able to do my shopping, and I also went to a discussion group that evening on therapeutic communities. Something I wasn't going to go to because I felt so flat and rough.
I was amazed by the effect that chocolate and coffee had on me. Oh, I think without chocolate the effect would be much less. That's how sensitive I am to chemicals, and it's enough for me. It amazes me how much Danny Lux put chemicals in himself and lived so long. But I can understand the effect from just having chocolate and coffee.
So how can you tell me you're lonely and safe with you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind.
The other day I saw a man I knew in the 1980s. He lived rough. And some of the time he slept in St. James's Church, Piccadilly, in the basement where the boiler was. Also, he used the garden shed in the small gardens there, and had a cassette player, bed cum bench, small heater, light. I think he had a small fridge. We used to go and talk to him, some of us who used the church for alternative events and lectures.
His name was Terry. He was very tall, with short dreadlocks. We used to talk about spiritual matters and philosophy. He seemed very knowledgeable. And also, with his street awareness, very practical in a survival sense. Whenever I go to St. James's, I think of him. I wonder if he's still alive. The mortality rate for people on the streets is very high, but I think one of the big reasons for this is drink and drugs.
Terry once told me, and I must admit, when he pointed it out, I could tell it was true, that he never washed. He said the reason he never smelt was because he didn't drink. And he put out his bare arm for me to smell. And it was true.
Anyway, approaching Charing Cross Station last Thursday, I saw him leaning against a lamppost, eating a small carton of yoghurt with his fingers, just scraping it round the edge and putting it in his mouth. He looked well. In fact, he looked very well. I shouted to him, "Terry!" But he never looked up, so I walked up to him and I said, "Terry, do you remember me? It's me."
Crusoe!
He just shook his head. So I said, "No? You don't remember me?" He just shook his head again without even looking up.
Walked away, feeling disconsolate.